Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the deck of the USS Hampton, watching the gray waters of the Pacific Ocean stretch endlessly toward the horizon. At 28, she was one of the youngest officers ever to receive command of a nuclear submarine's navigation division. The salty wind whipped through her short brown hair as she reviewed the mission briefings one final time. Sarah had grown up in a military family. Her father, Admiral Robert Mitchell, was a decorated naval officer with 35 years of service. He had commanded destroyers in the Gulf War and later supervised submarine operation from his position at the Pentagon. Throughout her childhood, Sarah had listened to his stories about life beneath the waves, about the silent service that protected America's interests in the darkest depths of the ocean. But their relationship had grown complicated over the years. Admiral Mitchell believed that women had no place on submarines. He had fought against the integration policies, arguing that the confined spaces and long deployments created too many risks. When Sarah announced her intention to join the submarine service, their dinner table conversations became battlegrounds of heated arguments and cold silences. The USS Hampton was a Los Angeles-class attack submarine, one of the most advanced vessels in the American fleet. Sarah had spent 3 years working her way up through various positions, proving herself to skeptical crew members who questioned whether a woman could handle the pressure of underwater operations. She had mastered every system, from the nuclear reactor to the torpedo tubes. Her mathematical precision in navigation had saved the submarine from detection during training exercises in the North Atlantic. Captain James Rodriguez had become Sarah's mentor and strongest supporter. A veteran submariner with 20 years of experience, he recognized her exceptional abilities and recommended her for advanced training. Under his guidance, Sarah had learned not just the technical aspects of submarine warfare, but also the psychological challenges of leading men in the claustrophobic environment hundreds of feet below the surface. The current mission was classified at the highest levels. Intelligence reports suggested that a foreign submarine had been conducting surveillance operations near American territorial waters. The USS Hampton had been dispatched to investigate and, if necessary, track the intruder back to its home port. Sarah's role as navigation officer would be crucial in maintaining stealth while gathering intelligence. As the submarine prepared to dive, Sarah checked her instruments one final time. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, sealing hatches and preparing systems for underwater operations. The diving alarm echoed through the vessel as tons of seawater flooded the ballast tanks, pulling them down into the dark embrace of the Pacific. 3 days into the patrol, sonar operator petty officer First Class Williams detected unusual acoustic signatures. The sounds were faint, almost masked by the natural background noise of the ocean, but Williams had trained his ear over 8 years of submarine service. He immediately reported the contact to the control room, where Sarah was standing watch as officer of the deck. Sarah studied the sonar displays, her mind processing the acoustic data with mathematical precision. The contact was moving slowly, approximately 15 miles to the northeast. Its sound signature matched the profile of a foreign submarine, specifically one of the newer models that had been causing concern among naval intelligence analysts. This was exactly what they had been sent to find. Captain Rodriguez arrived in the control room within minutes of the initial detection. He studied the tactical situation while Sarah provided her analysis of the contact's movements and probable intentions. The foreign submarine appeared to be conducting a systematic search pattern, possibly mapping the underwater terrain for future operations. The decision was made to close distance and gather more detailed intelligence. Sarah plotted a careful approach course that would keep them in the submarine's acoustic shadow, using the ocean's thermal layers to mask their presence. The USS Hampton moved like a ghost through the water, its crew maintaining absolute silence as they stalked their quarry. For 6 hours, they followed the foreign submarine, recording its acoustic signature and documenting its activities. Sarah's navigation skills kept them positioned perfectly, close enough to gather valuable intelligence, but far enough away to avoid detection. The foreign crew seemed unaware of their presence, continuing their systematic survey of the ocean floor. Then, something unexpected happened. The foreign submarine suddenly changed course, turning directly toward the USS Hampton's position. Either they had detected something, or they were following a predetermined patrol pattern that brought them dangerously close. Captain Rodriguez faced a critical decision: maintain position and risk discovery, or break contact and lose the intelligence opportunity. Sarah watched the tactical display as the distance between the two submarines decreased. Her father's words echoed in her memory, warnings about the dangers of submarine warfare and the split-second decisions that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. She had spent years proving herself worthy of this responsibility, and now that proof would be tested in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. The foreign submarine continued its approach, now less than 5 miles away and closing steadily. In the cramped control room of the USS Hampton, every man held his breath as they waited for their captain's orders. Sarah's hands remained steady on her instruments, ready to execute whatever course of action was chosen. The silent dance of submarine warfare was about to reach its most dangerous phase. Captain Rodriguez made the decision that would define the next 72 hours of their lives. Instead of breaking contact, he ordered the USS Hampton to go deeper, using the ocean's thermal layers to hide their acoustic signature. Sarah quickly calculated the optimal depth and course changes needed to maintain surveillance while avoiding detection. The submarine descended to 400 feet, where the cold water would help mask the sounds of their movement. The foreign submarine passed within 2 miles of their position, close enough that the sonar operators could hear the distinct rhythm of its propellers through the hull. Sarah monitored the navigation systems with intense concentration, making tiny adjustments to keep them positioned in the acoustic shadow. One mistake, one calculation error, could expose their presence and potentially trigger an international incident. For 3 more hours, they maintained their silent vigil. The foreign submarine completed what appeared to be a detailed survey of the seafloor, using advanced sonar equipment to map the underwater terrain. Sarah documented every course change and speed variation, building a comprehensive picture of the intruder's capabilities and intentions. The intelligence they were gathering would be invaluable to naval planners and defense analysts. As dawn broke above the ocean's surface, the foreign submarine began moving toward deeper waters. Captain Rodriguez faced another critical decision: continue following or break off and return to port with the intelligence they had already gathered. Sarah provided her assessment of their current position and the risks associated with extended pursuit. The foreign submarine was heading toward international waters, where the rules of engagement became more complex. The captain chose to follow. The USS Hampton adjusted course and speed, maintaining surveillance while staying beyond detection range. Sarah's navigation skills were tested to their limits as she plotted courses through underwater canyons and around seamounts, using the ocean's natural features to provide concealment. The foreign submarine seemed unaware of their presence, maintaining a steady course toward what intelligence analysts suspected was a secret naval base. 12 hours later, their quarry led them to a revelation that would shock naval intelligence. Hidden in a deep ocean trench, protected by underwater mountains and thermal vents, was a sophisticated submarine facility. Through their periscope, they observed multiple submarines docked at underwater piers, with supply vessels moving between the surface and the hidden base. Sarah carefully documented the coordinates and took detailed photographs of the installation. The discovery represented one of the most significant intelligence breakthroughs in years. The existence of this hidden base explained numerous unexplained submarine contacts in the region and provided insight into foreign naval capabilities that had previously been unknown. Sarah's precise navigation had enabled them to follow their target directly to this strategic location. But their luck was about to run out. As they prepared to withdraw and report their discovery, the USS Hampton sonar detected multiple contacts emerging from the hidden base. For submarines were departing simultaneously, spreading out in a search pattern that would make escape extremely difficult. The foreign navy had somehow detected their presence and was responding with overwhelming force. Captain Rodriguez called for emergency speed as Sarah plotted the fastest course to safe waters. The USS Hampton's nuclear reactor pushed the submarine to maximum velocity, but they were outnumbered 4-1 against submarines that knew these waters intimately. The chase that followed would test every skill Sarah had learned during her years of training and experience. The foreign submarines moved with coordinated precision, attempting to box in the USS Hampton and force it to the surface. Sarah studied the tactical display, searching for gaps in their formation that could provide an escape route. She recommended a dangerous course through a narrow underwater canyon, where the USS Hampton's smaller size might provide an advantage over their larger pursuers. Captain Rodriguez trusted Sarah's judgment and ordered the turn into the canyon. The submarine descended toward the rocky seafloor, threading between towering underwater cliffs that rose hundreds of feet on either side. Navigation lights illuminated the dark water ahead as Sarah guided them through the treacherous passage, using sonar to avoid collision with the canyon walls. Two of the pursuing submarines followed them into the canyon, but the larger vessels had difficulty maneuvering in the confined space. Sarah spotted an opportunity and recommended a sharp turn into a side passage that appeared too narrow for their pursuers. The USS Hampton scraped against the canyon wall as it made the turn, but emerged into a wider chamber that led toward the open ocean. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of their pursuers struggling to navigate the narrow passage. One of the foreign submarines had damaged its hull against the rocky walls and was forced to surface for emergency repairs. The other continued pursuit, but was falling behind as Sarah led them through a maze of underwater passages that she had memorized from sonar readings during their approach. 3 hours later, they reached international waters with only one pursuing submarine still on their trail. Captain Rodriguez ordered a series of evasive maneuvers designed to break contact and disappear into the vast Pacific Ocean. Sarah coordinated with the sonar operators to find thermal layers and acoustic shadows that would hide their signature from enemy sensors. The final phase of their escape required Sarah to make the most challenging navigation decisions of her career. Using underwater currents and temperature variations, she plotted a course that would carry them away from their pursuer while minimizing the sounds of their propulsion system. The USS Hampton moved like a ghost through the water, eventually losing their last pursuer in the acoustic confusion of a busy shipping lane. As they finally surfaced to communicate their discovery to naval headquarters, Sarah reflected on the events of the past day. She had proven herself under the most challenging conditions imaginable, demonstrating that her skills and judgment were equal to any submarine officer in the fleet. The intelligence they had gathered would reshape understanding of foreign naval capabilities and strategic intentions. But the real test was yet to come. Admiral Mitchell was among the senior officers who would debrief them upon their return to port, and Sarah knew that their professional relationship was about to be tested in ways that neither of them could have anticipated. The USS Hampton approached Pearl Harbor 3 days later, carrying what naval intelligence would later describe as the most significant submarine surveillance operation in a decade. Sarah stood in the control room as they navigated through the harbor entrance, watching the familiar landmarks of her childhood come into view. She had spent summers here when her father was stationed at Pacific Fleet headquarters, never imagining that she would one day return as a submarine officer carrying secrets that could change the balance of naval power in the Pacific. Admiral Mitchell was waiting on the dock when they tied up to the pier. Sarah watched through the periscope as her father stood among the other senior officers, his expression unreadable behind his service dress uniform and admiral stars. She had not seen him in 8 months since their last argument about her assignment to submarine duty. The conversation had ended with him predicting that she would prove his point about women being unsuited for the demands of underwater warfare. The debriefing began immediately in a secure conference room deep within the Naval Intelligence Building. Sarah presented her navigation logs and tactical analysis to a room filled with admirals, intelligence analysts, and submarine warfare experts. She described their discovery of the hidden submarine base with precise technical detail, explaining how her navigation decisions had enabled them to maintain surveillance and escape when discovered. Admiral Mitchell listened without expression as his daughter detailed their encounter with 4 pursuing submarines and the dangerous escape through underwater canyons. When she finished her presentation, the room erupted with questions about the foreign submarine's capabilities, the base's defensive measures, and the strategic implications of the discovery. Sarah answered each query with the same mathematical precision that had guided the USS Hampton through its perilous mission. Captain Rodriguez provided his own assessment of Sarah's performance, describing her navigation skills as exceptional and her judgment under pressure as outstanding. He recommended her for promotion and suggested that she be considered for submarine command training, the highest level of responsibility in the underwater service. Several other officers in the room nodded their agreement, recognizing that Sarah had proven herself under the most challenging circumstances. But Admiral Mitchell remained silent during the praise for his daughter's performance. When asked for his evaluation of the mission, he focused on the strategic intelligence rather than the officers who had gathered it. Sarah could see the conflict in her father's eyes as he struggled between pride in her accomplishments and his fundamental opposition to women serving on submarines. The formal debriefing continued for 6 hours, with detailed analysis of every aspect of their surveillance operation. Sarah provided technical drawings of the foreign submarines they had observed, acoustic recordings of their propulsion systems, and precise coordinates of the hidden base. Intelligence analysts would spend months studying this information to understand its implications for naval defense planning. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Mitchell approached Sarah for their first private conversation in months. They walked in silence to his office, where family photographs and naval commendations covered the walls. Sarah noticed that her own Naval Academy graduation picture still sat prominently on his desk, despite their professional disagreements. Admiral Mitchell closed the door and studied his daughter with the same analytical gaze he used for tactical assessments. He acknowledged that her performance during the mission had been exemplary, but expressed concerns about the risks she had taken during the escape through the underwater canyons. Sarah defended her navigation decisions, explaining the mathematical calculations that had guided her choices and the alternatives that would have been more dangerous. Their conversation revealed the fundamental tension between their personal relationship and their professional roles. Admiral Mitchell admitted that his opposition to women on submarines was based partly on fear for Sarah's safety, but also on genuine concerns about unit cohesion and operational effectiveness. Sarah countered with evidence from her 3 years of submarine service, pointing to her successful integration with crews and her proven technical competence. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent message from Naval Intelligence Headquarters. Satellite reconnaissance had confirmed the existence of the hidden submarine base, and senior defense officials were requesting immediate consultation with the officers who had discovered it. Sarah and Captain Rodriguez were ordered to report to Washington within 24 hours for briefings with the Secretary of Defense and National Security Council. As they prepared for the flight to Washington, Sarah learned that her father would also be traveling to the capital for strategic planning sessions related to their discovery. The hidden submarine base represented a significant shift in the regional balance of power, requiring adjustments to American naval deployments and defense strategies. Admiral Mitchell would be among the senior officers responsible for developing the military response. The flight to Washington gave Sarah time to reflect on the events of the past week and their implications for her career. She had proven herself under the most challenging circumstances, demonstrating that women could perform submarine operations with the same skill and courage as their male counterparts. The intelligence she had helped gather would influence defense policy for years to come. But she also recognized that her success would complicate her relationship with her father even further. Admiral Mitchell would have to acknowledge publicly that his daughter had performed exceptionally in the role he had argued women could not handle effectively. The contradiction between his personal beliefs and her professional accomplishments would force him to reevaluate positions he had held for decades. Captain Rodriguez briefed Sarah on the Washington meetings, explaining that they would be questioned by officials who had never served on submarines, but who made decisions affecting underwater warfare operations. She would need to translate technical submarine operations into language that civilian defense officials could understand, while maintaining the precision necessary for strategic planning. The plane descended toward Reagan National Airport as Sarah prepared for the most important briefings of her career. The intelligence they carried would reshape American understanding of foreign naval capabilities, but the real test would be whether her personal relationship with Admiral Mitchell could survive the professional success that challenged everything he believed about women in submarine warfare. As they gathered their classified briefing materials and prepared to disembark, Sarah wondered whether her father would finally acknowledge that she belonged in the submarine service, or whether her success would only deepen the divide between them. The next 24 hours would determine not only the military response to their discovery, but also the future of their relationship as both naval officers and family members. The Pentagon's secure briefing room buzzed with tension as senior defense officials gathered to hear about the discovered submarine base. Sarah sat at the polished conference table, her service dress uniform crisp despite the long flight from Hawaii. Across from her, Admiral Mitchell took his position among the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his expression carefully neutral as he prepared to hear his daughter brief the nation's highest military leaders. Secretary of Defense Margaret Williams opened the meeting by emphasizing the strategic importance of the intelligence gathered by the USS Hampton. The hidden submarine base represented the most significant naval threat discovery in the Pacific since the end of the Cold War. Sarah's precise navigation and Captain Rodriguez's tactical decisions have provided the Pentagon with invaluable insights into foreign naval capabilities and intentions. Sarah began her presentation with the technical details of their surveillance operation, using sophisticated computer models to recreate their approach to the hidden base. Defense officials leaned forward as she described the underwater facility's sophisticated construction, with submarine pens carved directly into the seafloor and supplied by vessels that could operate completely submerged. The base could support at least 12 submarines simultaneously while remaining invisible to satellite surveillance. The strategic implications became clear as Sarah detailed the types of submarines they had observed at the facility. Advanced attack submarines capable of long-range operations were being staged within striking distance of major shipping lanes and American naval installations. The base's location provided access to critical Pacific trade routes while remaining hidden from conventional surveillance methods. Admiral Mitchell watched his daughter present her findings with growing recognition of her exceptional analytical abilities. Sarah's mathematical precision in describing submarine movements and technical capabilities impressed even the most experienced naval officers in the room. She had transformed her navigation logs into a comprehensive intelligence assessment that would guide American naval strategy for years to come. The questioning that followed tested Sarah's knowledge of submarine warfare in ways her Naval Academy training had never anticipated. Defense officials wanted to understand everything from the foreign submarines' acoustic signatures to their probable weapons capabilities. Sarah answered each question with detailed technical explanations, drawing on her 3 years of submarine experience to provide insights that no intelligence analyst could match. National Security Advisor David Chun asked about the foreign Navy's apparent ability to detect the USS Hampton's presence despite their stealth technology. Sarah explained that their discovery was likely the result of advanced acoustic monitoring systems rather than any failure of American submarine capabilities. The hidden base's defensive network included underwater listening posts that could detect even the most subtle acoustic signatures. The discussion turned to potential military responses, with Admiral Mitchell contributing his expertise in submarine warfare strategy. He outlined various options for monitoring the base's activities without revealing that its location was known to American forces. The challenge would be gathering ongoing intelligence, while avoiding actions that might provoke an international incident or compromise future surveillance operations. Sarah found herself in the unprecedented position of briefing senior officials alongside her father, their professional collaboration contrasting sharply with their personal disagreements about women in submarine service. Admiral Mitchell deferred to her technical expertise several times during the discussion, acknowledging her superior knowledge of the specific operational details they were analyzing. The meeting's most significant moment came when Secretary Williams asked Admiral Mitchell for his assessment of the mission's success and the performance of the USS Hampton's crew. Sarah held her breath as her father stood to address the room, knowing that his response would influence not only her career, but also the broader question of women's roles in submarine warfare. Admiral Mitchell's response surprised everyone in the room, including Sarah. He described the mission as one of the most successful submarine surveillance operations in his 35 years of naval service, praising both Captain Rodriguez's tactical leadership and Sarah's exceptional navigation skills. He specifically cited her ability to maintain surveillance under challenging conditions and execute the dangerous escape that had brought them safely home with critical intelligence. But Admiral Mitchell went further, using Sarah's success to address the broader policy questions about women on submarines. He admitted that his previous opposition had been based on theoretical concerns rather than operational evidence, and that Sarah's performance demonstrated that women could serve effectively in the most demanding submarine roles. His public acknowledgement represented a complete reversal of positions he had held for decades. The briefing concluded with instructions for continued surveillance of the hidden base using alternative methods that would not risk another submarine detection. Sarah would be reassigned to naval intelligence to help analyze ongoing reconnaissance data, while Captain Rodriguez would return to Pearl Harbor to prepare the USS Hampton for future operations. The intelligence they had gathered would be distributed to Allied navies under strict security protocols. As the officials filed out of the briefing room, Admiral Mitchell approached Sarah for their first conversation since his public acknowledgement of her success. He explained that watching her brief senior defense officials had forced him to recognize abilities he had been reluctant to see. Her technical competence and operational judgment clearly equaled that of any submarine officer in the fleet, regardless of gender. Sarah responded to her father's admission with the same professional composure she had maintained throughout the mission. She acknowledged that proving herself had required exceptional performance under extraordinary circumstances, but expressed hope that future women in submarine service would not face the same skepticism she had encountered. Her success should open doors rather than remain an isolated exception. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Pacific Fleet Headquarters. Satellite surveillance had detected unusual activity at the hidden submarine base, with multiple submarines departing simultaneously for unknown destinations. The discovery of the base had apparently triggered a major operational response that required immediate American action to protect regional shipping and naval assets. Admiral Mitchell was ordered to return immediately to Pearl Harbor to coordinate the naval response, while Sarah would remain in Washington to assist with intelligence analysis. As they prepared to separate, both father and daughter recognized that their relationship had fundamentally changed. The professional success that had initially divided them had ultimately brought them together in mutual respect and understanding. The mission that began with Admiral Mitchell's skepticism about his daughter's capabilities had ended with his public endorsement of women in submarine service. Sarah's exceptional performance under pressure had not only provided critical intelligence, but also helped change naval policy in ways that would benefit future generations of women officers. The personal cost of proving herself had been significant, but the professional and policy implications would extend far beyond their individual relationship. 6 months after the discovery of the hidden submarine base, Sarah found herself standing on the bridge of the USS Columbia, the newest Virginia-class submarine in the Pacific Fleet. She wore the gold oak leaves of a lieutenant commander and carried orders that made her the first woman ever assigned as executive officer of an attack submarine. The promotion had come directly from the Chief of Naval Operations, based on her exceptional performance during the intelligence mission and Admiral Mitchell's personal recommendation. The ceremony for her change of command had been attended by senior naval officers from across the Pacific Fleet, including her father, who had flown in from his new assignment as Commander of Submarine Forces Pacific. Admiral Mitchell's speech during the ceremony had focused on merit-based advancement and the importance of recognizing exceptional performance regardless of gender. The transformation in his thinking had been complete and public. Captain Lisa Chun, the USS Columbia's commanding officer, had specifically requested Sarah as her executive officer. Captain Chun was herself a pioneer, being only the second woman to command a nuclear submarine, and she understood the unique pressures that came with breaking barriers in the submarine service. Together, they were proving that women could serve effectively at the highest levels of underwater warfare operations. The USS Columbia's current mission involved monitoring the abandoned submarine base that Sarah had discovered months earlier. Subsequent surveillance had revealed that the facility had been evacuated shortly after the USS Hampton's reconnaissance mission, with the foreign Navy apparently deciding that its location had been compromised. The base now served as a testing ground for new American surveillance technologies and underwater warfare tactics. Sarah stood in the control room as they approached the coordinates she had memorized during that dangerous night 6 months ago. The underwater installation looked different now, with American monitoring equipment replacing the foreign submarines that had once operated from the hidden piers. The transformation from enemy facility to American surveillance outpost demonstrated how a single intelligence mission could reshape regional naval balance. The crew of the USS Columbia treated Sarah with the same professional respect accorded to any executive officer, a marked contrast to the skepticism she had faced early in her submarine career. Her reputation for technical competence and sound judgment under pressure had preceded her to the new assignment. Young officers sought her mentorship, while experienced enlisted personnel valued her expertise in submarine operations. During their patrol, they received orders to investigate unusual acoustic signatures detected by the monitoring station that now occupied the former enemy base. Sarah coordinated with the sonar operators as they tracked the contacts, which appear to be a small group of submarines conducting training exercises in international waters. The irony was not lost on her that she was now using the same skills that had discovered the hidden base to monitor its former occupants. The tactical situation developed quickly as they identified 3 foreign submarines conducting what appear to be attack simulations against mock targets. Sarah recommended a surveillance approach that would allow them to gather intelligence on the foreign Navy's current tactics and capabilities without revealing their own presence. Captain Chun approved the plan, trusting Sarah's judgment based on her proven record of successful submarine operations. For 12 hours, they maintained covert surveillance of the training exercise, documenting new submarine technologies and tactical procedures that represented significant advances in foreign naval capabilities. Sarah's analysis of their movements revealed that the foreign Navy had learned from the discovery of their hidden base, developing new operational methods designed to avoid detection by American surveillance systems. The information they gathered would prove valuable to naval intelligence analysts working to understand how the foreign Navy had adapted to the loss of their strategic submarine facility. Sarah's detailed tactical observations provided insights into enemy capabilities that could only be gathered through direct submarine surveillance. Her expertise in navigation and tactical analysis had once again produced intelligence of strategic importance. As they prepared to return to Pearl Harbor with their latest intelligence findings, Sarah reflected on the remarkable changes that had occurred in her life and career over the past year. The dangerous mission that had tested her skills and endangered her relationship with her father had ultimately led to professional advancement and personal reconciliation that she had never thought possible. Admiral Mitchell was waiting on the pier when the USS Columbia returned to port, continuing a tradition he had begun after his change of perspective about women in submarine service. He made a point of attending Sarah's mission debriefings whenever possible, demonstrating his support for her career and his confidence in her abilities. Their professional relationship had become a model for how family members could serve together in the military while maintaining appropriate boundaries. The debriefing of their latest surveillance mission took place in the same secure conference room where Sarah had first presented her discovery of the hidden submarine base. She described the Foreign Navy's new training procedures with the same technical precision that had impressed senior officials months earlier, while Captain Shun provided her assessment of Sarah's performance as executive officer. The discussion included preliminary plans for Sarah's next assignment, which would involve attending the submarine command course that prepared officers for their own submarine commands. Admiral Mitchell's recommendation had been enthusiastic, describing Sarah as one of the most promising submarine officers of her generation and predicting that she would make significant contributions to underwater warfare strategy and operations. As the meeting concluded, Sarah walked with her father along the Pearl Harbor waterfront where she had played as a child while he served at Pacific Fleet headquarters. The conversation that followed addressed both their professional relationship and their personal reconciliation, acknowledging how the crisis that had tested their family bond had ultimately strengthened their mutual respect and understanding. Admiral Mitchell admitted that his initial opposition to women in submarine service had been based on outdated assumptions rather than objective analysis of capabilities and performance. Sarah's exceptional service had forced him to examine his own biases and recognize that merit rather than gender should determine advancement opportunities in the submarine force. His public change of position had influenced naval policy in ways that would benefit future generations of women officers. Sarah expressed gratitude for her father's eventual support, while acknowledging that proving herself had required performance standards that exceeded those expected of male officers. She hoped that her success would normalize women's presence in submarine service, making it easier for future women to serve without facing the same skepticism and resistance she had encountered. Their conversation was interrupted by news that Sarah had been selected for promotion to commander and assignment to submarine command school, making her eligible to eventually command her own submarine. The announcement represented the culmination of a career that had begun with family conflict and professional skepticism, but had evolved into recognition as one of the Navy's most promising submarine officers. As they watched the sunset over Pearl Harbor, both father and daughter recognized that their story had become part of the broader narrative of women's integration into combat roles throughout the military. Sarah's exceptional performance under pressure had helped change not only naval policy, but also social attitudes about women's capabilities in the most demanding military specialties. The mission that had begun with Admiral Mitchell sending his daughter away on a dangerous submarine patrol had ended with his pride in her accomplishments and his advocacy for her continued advancement. The nuclear submarine that had surfaced with her command flag waving had brought more than just critical intelligence home. It had carried proof that excellence in military service transcends traditional gender boundaries, and that family relationships can survive and strengthen through professional challenges that test both personal bonds and institutional assumptions.